Hey there, I think I am on. We are starting. Let's see. This is a new thing for me, so I'm excited. If you are here, we are going to make some art together today, and so I'm going to wait for a few minutes to see if there are people coming onto the chat because I think I'm a few minutes early. So, but I want to make sure everything was set up. I was having some issues with the audio earlier in the week. And so once it looks like maybe there are some people here. Hey there, Jennifer. Yay. Can you hear me okay? Because I wasn't sure about my audio earlier in the week, and so I was messing around a little bit this morning with it and hoping everything would be on board. So anyway, we'll wait a couple minutes. I just want to wait and see if there's a few more people that want to join in. And thank you again for joining me for this very first live. We'll see how it goes. Hey there, Shabby Road Studio. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming along with this first endeavor. I'm kind of choking. Oh, great. Thanks, Jennifer. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, and when I'm doing my videos, my regular videos, I can edit those out, like, or I can redo them. So today it's like, this is all natural, and so hopefully the unedited version won't, go on and on too much with too much chit chat. But okay, so audio's working. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to mention is if there's any questions that anybody has as we're going along, make sure I want to be reading the questions along. And oh, Monica's here. Lilo, hi, yay! This is so exciting. I want to make sure that I answer your questions. So if you could put like in the chat like a Q and then ask the question, so then my eye will kind of go right to it, or the word question, just somehow like so it triggers me that if there is something that you want to ask, that I can respond to that on live. And if you are watching the replay of this, just a little housekeeping here. I have found when I'm watching a replay, I want to know what the dialogue is in the chat box because I don't know what necessarily the person is responding to. So if you are watching the replay and you want to follow along with the chat, then I wrote it down. I'm going to reference it over here. You as you're looking at the video on the upper right hand side, there is something that says show chat replay. And you click on that and it will automatically go to like top chat, and it could be that you want to watch the whole thing, so then you just click that downward arrow and it will say live chat replay. So that's a lot of information, but for those of you who are not watching it live, like these guys, hi there from the UK, nice. I wonder what time it is. Is it night? I think you're 9-10 hours ahead of us. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in Seattle. And it's a bright, sunshiny day, which is great because often in the spring we have a lot of rain. Well, it's always raining. Well, it's not always raining here, but it feels like it's kind of cloudy a lot of the time. So before we get started, I thought I would just mention a few things about, I'm not going into a lot of detail about myself, but those of you who do not know me, I do live in Seattle, like I mentioned, and I came to art very late in life. I started making art. I took my first online art class at the age of 50. And so it has just been this really remarkable journey over the last 13 years, just kind of diving into the things I like. But wow, the way I started it back in the day, you couldn't really recognize what I'm doing now because I finally figured out what I like, my colors, my tools, all the shapes and things that I like to make. So any of you who are coming to it later in life, I just want to encourage you that it's never too late, for sure. The other thing that has been really important to me along this journey is to share and encourage everyone in their art making. So I think that has to do with the fact that I am not formally trained and I just kind of mess around and make things and see what happens. And so it is, so it has been a great journey, and I'm hoping to encourage each and every one of you to be creative, whether it's, whether you're whatever form that might take. So anyway, okay, 2200, that's 10 p.m. Oh, crochet. So you are you're getting ready for bed. So I'll try to get on it or keep it exciting so that you're not going to fall asleep on me. So anyway, well, thanks for letting me know that. Okay, so I'm going to switch the camera around down below. And I thought today what we would do is I would just kind of show you how I warm up and things I do when I'm like, oh, I can't get started. I don't really know what I want to do. And so just some simple things, because I wasn't really sure, how I'm going to be able to make art and talk and respond to questions all at the same time. So I'm trying to keep it a little bit simple this first time and just see how it goes. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those up. So I'm going to change the view. And anyway, the first thing I want to show you is what I do when I'm having a hard time getting started. A lot of times I just take these blank book papers that I have, and I have a whole bin of them, and a lot of times I'll grab this. A lot of times when I'm done making, let's say this is I put out some paint today, but when I'm done with that and the leftover paint, then I go through an old book and I just smear the paint on here. I do not just wipe it and throw it away. I use every last bit of it, and then it becomes all these random, I'll roll these over here too, all these different random collage papers that I can use when I'm making art. And so I feel like nothing is wasted. So what I would do if, okay, I'm not feeling it today, and if I really am not in a space where I want to pull out even any paint, a lot of times I have this box of oil pastels, and they're really not that messy in general. So I might pull those out and just start making, anybody can make a circle, right? So circles or lines or whatever it happens to be, and switch up the colors, and before you know it, you have something interesting. Typically, we're going to reach for colors that we're drawn to. For me, those tend to be more muted, and so you're not going to see me with a lot of really bright, super bright colors, although this blue's pretty bright. And I do think sometimes you need a pop of color just to kind of get yourself with all the neutrals, a lot of times you need a little zing, something in there to provide some contrast, because that is what makes things a little bit more interesting in the art. If you're a neutral palette person like myself. So that's just a real simple way. It could also be grabbing like a Stabilo all or charcoal and making marks on something. And of course, then you can paint over it. You can also grab just a quick little bit of water. You can make the lines less by just less. They're water soluble, the Stabilo all. So again, this is the problem. This is the unedited version where I'm stumbling over my words. Oh, hey, okay, looks like June, hi there. Oh gosh, you guys are all over the place. Okay, love that. Dee, hi from Texas. This is so exciting. This is so fun. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and we're just kind of doing some warm-ups right now for those of you who had just popped in. I'm just kind of giving you some ideas, some ways that I get started when I don't know what to do. Or sometimes it's like that resistance is so great. It's like the one thing that we really want to do is either make art or be creative in some form, and yet all we do is, watch other people making art, or we don't do it ourselves because I don't know, it's just hard to get started. And once you do these crazy things like just making these marks, and I'm going to grab a pastel over here, even a soft pastel, which are very messy, because of the dust, but they're so cool, and they can blend. You can blend them with your finger, you can blend them with, where's that paintbrush again? You can blend them with water. It's so awesome. The pigment in there in soft pastels is so awesome. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can go about it. Now, while you're watching right now, of course, I'm going to encourage you to maybe make some art yourself. Now, I know myself, when I'm watching someone, I get mesmerized by what they're doing, and I don't always do it. But what I found recently is, I'm going to grab just an art journal over here, like an old book art journal. So I found if I can just grab a page, let's just say blank page, but this isn't super blank. And even if I just am grabbing something not messy. Let's just say a pencil. Well, a pencil's kind of boring, but I can be doing something even if it's simple. That doesn't even show you that. Let's just grab one of these, this Stabilo. I can be adding something even as I'm watching. So there's things you can do. So even right now, if there's a pencil or markers are great. There's all kinds of different tools that aren't going to make a mess, and you can watch and sit at your computer or TV or wherever you're watching this. So anyway, just kind of wanted to show this is something on the most basic level that you can do. Now, obviously, you don't have to use book paper. You could use any kind of paper you have, white, it doesn't have to have something on it. The reason I like using book paper is one, I'm slightly obsessed with books, and my sister who is on here could verify that. She used to, when I was a kid, tell me to stop reading and come and watch TV with them or whatever it was. So I've always been obsessed with books, and so text is very meaningful to me. And so I think that's something for each of us. Like, what is the meaningful thing for you? And you may not even realize it, that you're gravitating toward it, but then ultimately, there it is, the thing that you absolutely love. So anyway, do you find yourself gravitating towards anything? I'd be curious what substrates you like to start on. And substrates, I just mean, book paper, art journal, computer paper. I even have, let me grab it real quick. This is like from a packing supply that you get a package from. And I love working on top of this. And I wasn't even thinking I was going to show this today, but let me show you real quick. Sometimes I just paint on it, and then I will put marks on here, and then I will tear this up and use it in, as collage or different things. Sometimes it's like, I just need to clean off my paintbrush and I need a large piece. Sometimes I do it on canvases. I have a canvas on the wall right now that I've been doing that. And it honestly is turning out really cool. And I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have thought just by cleaning off my paintbrush every day that it would turn out to be such a cool endeavor. So, okay. So the other thing I do when I'm warming up, besides just, that's the most simplistic, is putting shapes on paper, adding a background. Now, sometimes I say that, and then sometimes it's more about, I put some, this is just some black. Sometimes it is using the paint, and these are very simple marks. And I do like putting simple marks over the top of a background that's already there. And I feel like often what happens is we are all drawn to different marks and different shapes. I like, okay, I'm reading Jennifer, mixing paint colors with you while you paint. Yay, okay, I love that. We're all drawn to different marks. I love circles. I love these kind of basic marks. I also like making, let me grab, just gonna grab some papers that also have been painted. So I can show you a couple different things. So that's, you haven't painted on them. A lot of papers I have just started having marks on them. And these are ones that I definitely like putting, whether it's a tick mark like this, which is one of my favorite marks. I also really like, let's see, let's do it on this one. I like making block words. For example, I will just start writing here. And this is a big brush to do this with on a small piece of paper, but you just you don't try to get it all, it's capped. By the time you get to the end here, let's see, just finish. I'll just stop talking for a second. Creativity, so I won't be able to spell and paint at the same time. Creativity is important. You could go on and on. So I was going to say creativity is important for everyone, but just, it's not really even about reading it. It's about the text on top of a color, on top of book paper. It just lends itself to, I like the effect of that. I also like, I'm going to grab a smaller paintbrush. Maybe this one that I was using earlier. And I have some Payne's Gray here. I'm going to put some water. I don't know if, can you see that? Okay, yeah, I'm just putting some water in it. And normally Jennifer, like you, I don't. I'm generally mixing colors. I don't typically use paint right out of the tube. It's not my favorite, but right now to get us started, I am. I just like to see what happens. Like, ooh, if I add a little bit of this and a little bit of that, so let's add a little bit of raw umber into this and just see what happens. But ooh, that had something in it because I find that the colors are just richer, or there's just something more interesting because they're not right out of the tube. But another thing I like doing is almost it's like what I call pretend cursive. Oh, it's cursive, but yeah, it's just like writing words, like creativity. Let's do it, but we're doing it in a way that doesn't really matter if you can read it or not. Just kind of like these block letters, but in cursive. It is important. And obviously the size of your brush is going to impact that. And I'm not using brushes that are necessarily meant for this, but I like that look. And you can also do it in another way. Let's add some gray to that mix. Like just by doing this. This is really not anything, but it's a little more exciting than what I was doing because I was trying to spell something. So there's a lot of ways I just start. So the minute I start doing this, then I start getting interested in, and I'm over my, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start it. You know, what is happening here. So those are easy patterns and things that I like making. So another thing I'd like to do, particularly if I already have something down, I'll move these out of the way, is let's make, because we're on black here, let's mix a few of these colors, make it a little interesting. Well, obviously very muted colors. Okay, sorry about that. A doorbell rang and my dog is barking. I don't know if you can hear that. Is to make squares or marks I'll just do this. I'll just make a square on a plain background and then etch into it with, I have these I have these, I think I know they're pottery tools, and you can get them on Amazon, like a set for like $6 or $7. And they have all these different points and edges. But anyway, then you can do something like that over the top, which is, again, just making marks in the shape of a letter. I think you can kind of see that. Another thing is, let's do a couple different colors here. Do different boxes. And these are just simple ways to kind of get started, not like a final product. Let's get another paintbrush here. But just to kind of get you moving in the direction. Let's get some green. Somehow it always comes back to green for me. But we muted that down. So let's say we have a couple boxes here. And again, you can just put some marks into those, and just with the black underneath, it just makes it very interesting. And you can do whatever shapes you want. But I find working over the top of black with another color can have a great, it's very interesting to me. It adds a lot. So then after it dried, you could go back over it with another color and another thing, and just continue to add layers and build up these different things to make these collage papers. Also, sometimes I like my collage papers so much, like something like this, that I would just glue those into my art journal, because I'm like, oh, I took it to a place that I like. Normally, my collage papers look like this, so it's not something I want to keep necessarily, but it is something that I can use and as a starting point. So another thing I like doing is just making, let's find one that has this, is making just a simple shape. And again, we all have our favorite shapes, right? So this, I tend to make this shape a lot, and I'm not really sure why, but I just really like that particular shape. And every time I think, oh, I gotta come up with something else, it comes back to that. So it's like, I like this swirly shape. I like kind of imperfect squares or rectangles. I like circles, I like tick marks, and I like the block letter. I also like, let me do one more. And you can find that by, okay, what happened is when I first started making art, I of course copied the teacher because I didn't know anything about art, and in fact I didn't know anything about anything, and so I used their exact colors and their exact shapes and everything exactly about them. So what you gain from that is, oh, I liked that, and you always take away something, and I like that, I'm gonna do more of that, and I'm not gonna like that. So for example, if this was a shape that you liked, but you liked it in a different color, like you might like it in bright pink. That's the point. The takeaway is, oh, maybe the shape is something I like, even though the color isn't. So I always feel like there is something, we can take away from in that regard. So I don't know if you guys have had that experience or not, where you take these classes from these artists because they're amazing and you like all their styles or their techniques, but maybe their color palette is different, or maybe exactly what they're doing isn't exactly what you like, but I feel like there's always a takeaway. Anyway, that has been my experience, that even in worst case scenario, there's always something that you can take. So the other thing you can do is, oh, you love, yeah. Okay, so your Shabby Road Studio saying she loves the same color palette. And yeah, I used to really struggle with it because I felt like nobody was making this kind of color of art. And I know that's not really true because there's a lot of us out there, but um, I guess the classes I was taking, the colors were brighter, it was more whimsical, it was just, the things were different, and I'm really attracted to that. I'm really drawn to those. I love to see bright colored art, I like to see whimsical art, but when it came down to it, as I just kept going and going, it was like, oh my gosh, the grungier, kind of more muted palette just kept coming out. And I think you have to be true to who you are, but it takes a long time to figure that out. And exactly, Jennifer says it's important to play. Absolutely. Because that's how you figure out what, and I can't remember what shape I was going to do, but this wasn't probably it. But this is just playing, just messing around. Green over black. Oh, I was going to do stripes, something very simple. But I'm going to address that whole issue of, well, I'm not going to address it, but I'm going to say, here's my thoughts on play. I really struggle with that word. I can use the word, explore, experiment, practice, oh wait, I had one other thing before I started bring this over. But for some reason, that play is a hard word for me, and I don't know if other of you have it. It's like, it makes it, because it's play is what we need to do, and it's part of the whole process, because if it isn't fun and it isn't enjoyable, then it's work, and that's not play, and it's not experimenting, and we're not going to be able to move forward. But the word play, for some reason, always had this weird connotation to me, like it wasn't okay just to play. And I think that's just from how I grew up, and so I've really had to kind of reframe it a little bit and embrace a little bit more of the play versus always feeling like I have to be productive or be making something of value. And I think that's where, when I'll show you a little bit in a little while, and the art journal has really, that has done that for me. But one other thing I wanted to show you, these are all still things I do for warming up, using the papers, doing all these different things. But I also, sometimes I have these, I don't even know where I got it. It was I think they're 5 by, no, they've got to be bigger than that, 8 by 10 paper. And I gessoed it on both sides. So it's fairly, I don't know why I did it on both sides. I don't know. One side has some texture, one side is plain. I think because initially when I gessoed it on one side, it really curled, and I had read or saw something that if you gessoed the other side, it would lay flatter. And it kind of does. It's not the greatest quality paper. But sometimes what I do is I take these papers, and then I take my box of collage materials, and maybe I'll do something like that right now. I'm going to grab my I'm actually going to grab the matte gel because it's a little heavier and it's not going to go all over the place. You can use any kind of glue or even paint works as glue. So as we're talking, um, if you, okay, a lot of you mentioned where you're from. If anyone else hasn't joined in and mentioned, I'd love to hear. I can't believe how many people are from other countries. That's really awesome. And also, as we're doing this, do you have a, I'm just curious, like what is your favorite? I've been showing you all the things, oil pastels, soft pastels, pencils, talked about markers, paint. Obviously, there's, gouache, there's watercolor, there's oil pastel, all those things. What do you like working with? What is your favorite? What do you use primarily? I tend to use all of it, and I think many of us are mixed media, so we do tend to use like, oh, give me all the art supplies you have. So maybe there's not even just one thing that you like, but I'm just curious because I always think, man, is it just me? But I really like all these different things. Although I feel like I do always just come back to paint. I might start with something, but then the paint always takes over. But I say that, but then I did just create some total collage, no paint canvases for this art walk I was in, and then I also did some only oil pastel, well, over the top of collage. So I do use other things, but I just, my love of paint is great, and I think it's because I can't really draw, so I paint, I draw with my paint is I guess what I'm saying. And obviously abstract work doesn't require a lot of drawing. I think it's good to know composition and values and all that. So here's what I do. I'm babbling on, so okay. See, Lilo, is that right? Okay, you like everything too. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard not to like all the stuff. And I think that's the other thing that happens is we like all the stuff, so it's fun to buy it and then we don't use it. Or we just want to keep buying stuff. At least that's my tendency. So sometimes I have to put myself on a I have to let myself say, can't buy anything else. Okay, so what I might do is in this case, when I'm just, again, this would be something when I don't want to pull out paints, I don't actually want to pull out anything, I'm just going to pull out some matte medium, or this is matte gel, and my collage papers, and I'm going to just see if I can make something with it. So I could rip, I could use scissors, I'm just ripping in this case, and I think I'm going to start there. I'll have it hang over a little bit. So, and a lot of times I put matte gel over the top, but today, because I'm just doing this for an example. Let's just do some different shapes. So anyway, this is another great way if you've used up your leftover paint. This is just another fun way to use your collage papers, and then this could be. You could frame this obviously if it turned out great, fabulous. If not, a lot of times what I do is I'll make something like this, and then I will cut it down to 5x7. Find the composition I like, and I think I have a little window thing here. Grab it. So you can put this on and find what part of the composition you like, and then go from there. Okay, but let's keep to the similar color palette. Okay. And then I would just cut it down and make it into a card. Or sometimes I matte 5x7s, so there's that too. Okay, maybe this one. Maybe I feel like that goes right in the middle there. But I would have to cut that out, and maybe I will. Let's see. I wasn't really planning this, but okay. Maybe some writing. Okay, Jennifer, uh, I always come back to Paper Books Magazine. Uh-huh, because it's so, yes, I agree. I can't draw faces or people, but I love all mediums that I can manipulate with. Water. Okay, so you like water soluble things. I do too, except for watercolor. I don't know. I have not, I just, watercolors to me seem scary. Although I love charcoal, I love soft pastels, I love even water soluble graphite. Do you, Jennifer, do you use what watercolor? You probably do if you like that medium. I wish, it just seems so intimidating to me. But again, I think it's anything you haven't, you're not, you think you're not, you don't know how to use, and I think that's for me. I don't feel like I would know how to use it. Okay, I'm gonna use one more of these. And oh, June likes everything, including ink and clay. Clay. Okay, I like that. Um, so you do pottery or do you do like air clay or curious? I like clay. I want to use clay. I do. That's the thing. I think once you find your creative flow, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I like all of the things. And that's as it should be. We should like all the things. You don't have to focus. You don't have to pick just one. Okay, watercolors forgive me. Forget really? I always, to me, it looks so hard. Like I can't paint over the top of it. So for me, acrylic is so forgiving because I'll just keep painting over it and over it and over it. So that cracks me up. So obviously, because I've not ever used watercolor, I don't really know what I'm talking about. Want to learn paint faces? Yeah, I like faces. I do paint faces. Maybe we do a session on that. I'm not no expert or anything. I like kind of, but I do like painting faces, and it is just a skill. And I think anybody can do it. I think if when I go back to the faces I was painting when I first started to now, it's I'm kind of shocked at the where they come, but it's just a matter of doing them over and over again, and I'm very motivated, and there's certain faces I'm really drawn to, and now I look for those reference photos versus just painting from my own mind. I don't paint faces typically from my own mind, my own imagination. So okay, this is not the greatest thing, but I just, for the sake of example, I would definitely come over the top of this with like a matte medium or something. But the idea is, okay, is this a composition that I like? Then I can cut that out and maybe put it on a card or use it in some other way. I also have these mats that that you can frame. So they fit right into a 5x7 frame, and I think the inside is maybe 4x6. So 5x7 would be on to the outside. But anyway, it's just these are great. This is another great tool, another great way to use your collage papers, and particularly if you're like me and you are cleaning your brushes at the end, you're gonna have a lot of colors that I was going to say coordinate, but that's not what I meant. Kind of are of the similar color palette, and so they're gonna combine well if you put together something like this. But sometimes like I mentioned before, I just leave them full if I actually really like them. So maybe try watercolor in the tubes. Okay, it comes out like paint, and you can lighten the pigment with water, which might make it easier than working the other way. Okay, start lighter, then you can deepen the color and get rid of. Okay. There are some artists I follow who do watercolor, and it looks fabulous. And sometimes they do; they just kind of work it right out of the tube. But then, yeah, then I'm like, well, should I just use paint? Because it doesn't, it isn't, doesn't, it. So it's, I mean, acrylic paint, because then it doesn't. What do I want to say? It's not water soluble. It doesn't, because isn't watercolor it can still re. What do I want to say? I'm losing my words. This is why live is not maybe the best for me. Anyway, it isn't permanent, is what my point is. So that always worries me with watercolor. But I like it with other watercolors, water soluble mediums like charcoal, like soft pastels, because I like the fact that they will move around a little bit. So I probably would. It's about layering. Yeah, I think you're right. So it's like anything. It's a skill you got to learn. You got to figure that out and be willing to try it. And I think, like you said earlier, someone said earlier, like it's about playing. And So it's about, but again, it's like how many supplies can you have and how many things can you do? But I have a lot, so I probably could. Okay, I started with watercolor. Now I like acrylic ink, charcoal, water soluble oil pastels, lots of mediums. I don't use oil paints. Okay, I agree. I used oil paint. I did one video on oil paint because I had some water soluble oil paint, but I have not really used them much since. It's just because it takes a whole different set of. I feel like it takes a long time to dry, and then it takes, you got to use, I feel like I got to use a different brush. I don't know. It just feels like a whole thing. You either kind of got to go one way or the other. But I know people love oil paints just because of the, and I think it's the viscosity of it. It's beautiful. So, but yeah, I think you can get some of the same effects with these other materials. So, okay, let's see. What else was I gonna show you? Oh, one of the other ways I warm up, and I know this is gonna seem weird, but I'm gonna grab this and move this out of the way, is by, I tell myself, oh, all you have to do is just go find a page in your art journal and that you don't like. Here's this bright, beautiful pink. I don't know how in the world I ever was using pink, but I was. And I do like a muted pink, so don't get me wrong. And then what I do is I say, okay, what does this need? What can I do? And then that's just an easy way. I don't have to finish anything. I'm just going to improve it. So, okay, June does ceramics and mixed media, including printmaking. Wow. Okay, you do everything. That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. So I just think one thing leads to another. I don't know where you start. What was your entry point? The thing that got you started. But for sure, it's like one thing, you start with this and then it leads to that and then it keeps going on and on and on. And I now, a lot of the artists I follow, they do some of this little stitching. And so I have a little basket of weird stitching. I have these fabric pieces. I'll grab those a little bit all over the place today. So I have this bin of, like, I paint on fabrics. This bin doesn't have any stitching. I pull books apart and different things. I've done some tea dyeing. Yeah, it leads. Once you start, you realize this is fun. Like there's a lot of stuff you can make, and so sometimes I'll clean my paintbrushes off on fabric, and so that's a whole nother. That just, it keeps going and going. Water soluble oil, but I'm too impatient for regular oil to dry. Yeah, I agree. I admire the people that have that kind of patience. Also, to me, you can't work in an art journal or a sketchbook with oil paint. I mean, I do with my oil pastels, but that's a different beast. I mean, those don't really dry, but I feel like they're not wet. So yeah, I think that would, for me, if I always had to work on canvas or I always had to work on paper, water, like with oils, and then where would you put them to dry? I mean, how many pieces can you have going at a time? I don't know. So for me, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I totally hear you. Okay, so another thing that I do is I grab my art journal. This is a vintage book that I've turned into an art journal. And I go through and I find a page that needs something, and like this one. And then I think, what do I want to do to make it better? And of course, this page, I'm gonna grab something, hold it down a little bit. So for me, it would be, I don't like the background. So I'm going to change it right out of the gate. We're just going to use a little bit of white and maybe this yellow ochre. Maybe keep a little bit of reddish pinkish color going and just make it very neutral. So this is something, I don't really like that color. Let's add a little more yellow to it. You'll bring in some gray. It's okay not to like every color that you mix. I just keep going. And again, a lot of people would say, oh, those are muddy, and I'm really drawn to that. So it sounds like some of you are as well. So anyway, that's a little bit better, but it's muddy, but this is not the final. And I would just kind of go around and do something like this. And now the contrast with the book paper isn't so great, but I'm just kind of messing around, so it doesn't matter. And so there you have it. And so then maybe I add some marks in. So, you know, that the pink, I do maybe want a little bit of the pink to come through. And maybe I'm going to go back over it with a darker color. Get another paintbrush. Let's see. It's kind of using all the same size. I like to mix it up usually, but when you're working a little bit smaller. Okay. So it could be that I just do something like that and then call it good. And I know I'm going to come back because the background isn't maybe exactly what I want, but I've added a little bit more interest. Maybe I add some tick marks down here, even though that paint is starting to dry already, or even get something like that going. So this is another way, and I have a few here that I was going to just work in because you got to let them dry now. So this one is another old book, and let's see. This, I don't know, I was probably using up paint, and then that's what happens. You just kind of go, okay, now what do I want? Where do I want this to go? And I can see I've written numbers. There's a lot of texture going on, so I probably have some collage. And yeah, okay. Let's see, June. If someone will tell you you don't need other art supplies, it's a lie. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. If someone will tell you you don't need it. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, well, that's something I tell myself sometimes because you're right. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can have everything. I would like everything. I would like more than I have. I would like it unending. It's the using it then, right? It's like, okay, if I'm only using these 15 colors of paint, do I need? I should show you. I have like a whole, bin of blue. That's just the blues in acrylic paint. But I tend to use, one or two colors. But I got them all because, gosh, I would hate to not have them all, right? Or I'd hate to have, do I need this many paintbrushes of this particular size? Probably not. I have 3 of these. I have one. Okay. So I have a big one. I have a small one. I can grab it. And I have, okay, if I can reach it, I have a really big set. Okay, and these are just the ones that are on my desk. I mean, I have bigger ones over by my wall where I paint on larger canvases. So, yeah, I get you. I got all the supplies. That is for sure. So, okay, when I'm looking at this, I think, what do I need? Because I have a lighter value here, I have a dark value, but it's not super interesting. So, and on this green, I actually really don't like. So maybe we go the opposite. We do a lighter, maybe we do a lighter green or a different, something slightly different. Let's try it. And so even though I like greens in general, not every shade is going to be great, and not every shade is necessarily. And I wouldn't actually have to go over exactly what's going on here, but I think maybe I make some boxes. I don't know. So that's just the thing. When you're starting, it doesn't really matter. Just get something going, something interesting, and then you can kind of take it from there. Add something over that white. And something different over that green. What do we add there? I need another paintbrush, probably. A lot of times, if you guys aren't here, mostly you're not, I just use I use paintbrushes. I'll have a whole bunch of paintbrushes and then I just start kind of mixing them because it's kind of fun to see what colors you get if you have a little bit of paint from another, from another color on your paintbrush. So, I don't know if I like that. Let's see. Okay, and don't know. I don't know. Do you guys ever do this with your white? Like my white is not white. It has a whole bunch of other colors in it. And actually, I kind of like it like that because I don't typically use white by itself anyway. I mean, I do sometimes, but it's kind of, I like having the fun of having some other weird random colors in there. So, hi Michelle. Thanks for joining us. It's never too late, and there's going to hopefully be replay on this anyway if you want to catch up from the beginning. We'll have about 10-15 more minutes. Thank you for, yeah, I'm glad to see you like these colors too. Okay, so what I would do, we're just kind of doing, I'm just kind of showing the ways, different ways that I warm up using just as basic kind of supplies or whatever. So in something like this, I might just do some random tick marks down here, knowing I have, a color underneath. So, and I have a ton of texture on here, just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. And then a lot of times what I do is I come over it with my Catalyst wedge and just kind of wipe part of it out. And if I can kind of get that color a little bit outside of the lines, that's good too. Okay. And mess it up a little bit. If it's too perfect, I'm not a big fan. So that's just, I'll just do one more. This one I was showing you earlier. So here I used a whole bunch of water soluble materials, and then I put water over it, and it just was crazy, but such a fun way to start. I mean, literally, like taking your soft pastel and just going for it, like that is like the best feeling, isn't it? Like using your whole arm and doing it, and maybe there's like a oil pastel you want to use. Now, I will say with the oil pastels, when you go back over that, they resist a little bit, or you put the paint over it. And let me just show you. I've done this many a time because, of course, they tell you not to do this. Put acrylic paint over the top of oil pastel, but I'm just going to use white just to show you real quick. But I've found that it's fine. And I'm not sure, I don't know how long it would last or if it would peel off at some point. But what I like is this, where you can see the oil pastel underneath. So the paint does go over it. You can kind of see it, but it leaves a really cool effect. And I have done portraits like that, where I've done random marks, like, oh, I'm going to put different, let's say I was going to do this whole thing in a portrait, and I would just go randomly around and put oil pastel down, like this. And then then I'd paint my face over it and kind of do some scraping. A lot of times I'll do scraping like this, and it will reveal the color underneath, which is really unexpected and kind of adds to I don't know if the quirkiness is the right word, but it adds to the unexpected nature of when I do a portrait. I do like to have it be a looser one, although I want it to look like a person, but I don't mind if it's a little less, if it's more raw, I guess, and there's unexpected colors popping through. So, okay. So in a situation like this, what I would do is, because it's not something like, oh, you could leave it if you wanted, because it's your art journal or your sketchbook or whatever, and you don't, every page doesn't have to be perfect, and it can be however you want. But for me, I kind of look at that as a starting point, and it's a great way to jump in, either with more of this going on, like the whole, like get my arm going and all that, or I have these big blocks. They are Derwent charcoal extra large blocks, which I love these. And they put down, look at that. It's just so cool. It's just like massive charcoals. But now I've got kind of a mess. But I'm going to grab some water. Maybe I'll spray. Just get that wet again. Get that. So I'm going to add some paint over the top. So now, now we got a big mess, but that's okay. So let's grab a paper towel and dab some of that up. So this is kind of just different ideas for getting started. So, do you guys, I'm kind of curious because I've been working in these art journals. This is an actual art journal. This is like a purchased art journal. Those other ones were books, vintage books. Do you guys work in art journals or sketchbooks, or do you work just on paper or canvas? I'm just curious because I found, I mean, I have one, two, three, four, five, like 7 art journals going so that I can do what I just did over there and then go on to the next one and next one. And particularly on those days when it's like, I'm not really sure what I feel like doing. But it just gives me a place to start. So I'm just curious if I'm the only one who uses all these different things. So again, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to start painting. Maybe I paint in these little marks on here. That's kind of a fun way to start because sometimes you don't have directions. Like, okay. Just kind of gives you a little bit of momentum. And then obviously you can come in with white if you wanted and just kind of go over this, and those other colors from underneath will kind of pop through. So that's always another option. And just depending on what I feel like, that's kind of what I do. Because I like to start with a lot of busyness, but I don't like to end with it. I I like things to be a little less, I don't know, chaotic's the right word. But I can appreciate chaotic art. And I think that's a beautiful thing about, being creative and doing things is like you can appreciate people whose art isn't exactly like your own. Or maybe it's like, I don't actually, that is an art that I am drawn to, but I can admire it for the sake that I get what it takes to make that kind of stuff. So, okay. I'm going to just kind of finish this up. But as you can see, it's like already it's just kind of turning into something kind of so much cooler than what it was, like that busy, crazy thing. And all I did is add a couple colors and some, I think the soft pastel is really kind of making it cool because it's blending with the white. So this gives me another place to kind of start and to see where I want it to go. But what I was going to say is I'm going to stop here in a minute, and then if there's any other questions or things I can answer. Add a little bit up here. Then see, here's the thing. See, now I couldn't start, and now look at me. I don't want to stop, and that's how it should be. And that's what these ideas that was my idea when I decided what I was going to kind of show you guys today. Is like, okay, this is always a struggle for me. And every time I think, oh, I'm over that struggle, no, it comes right back. Because even once I stop and the momentum isn't quite there, it's always hard to get started again. So I don't know. I think that's a universal thing. I went over all of it. But look, I got this really cool muted background, and now I can go from there, and I could come in with, let's just say I want to do something really bold, just because this will be the final thing, and then if there's any questions, be sure to put those in, and then I will kind of turn the camera around and chat for a minute, and then we will be done. So, but in a case like this, I wouldn't have to use something as crazy as black. It could just be a dark green. It could be, this green oxide here, but I'm going to use black just for the sake of example. And it could just, because you have this really muted background, it could be a very, a statement that just like that then you can either respond again to, take it to it up further, add more color to it, add some more contrast, so it's not just this black and white. And obviously the way I did that ended up kind of 2 things right in the middle, which isn't necessarily how I would want it to be, but then I can kind of mess it up a little bit more, and it doesn't really matter. I can take my catalyst wedge, because there's a big chunk of paint right there. But this is kind of just messing around and then coming back in and making, you know, what parts do I like and what parts don't I like, and then I have something to respond to. And I guess for me, those are the easier ways to start. Then to start, let me bring this over. Then to start on this, setting things everywhere. Start here. This is harder for me. So I don't know, do you guys, is it just me or, but I have a hard time starting on this like this. Again, if I'm smart, I would just grab a soft pastel or oil pastel or a big chunky charcoal block and just go for it. But a lot of times it's like, oh, it has to be something perfect. Or the better, you know, why not? Just like start throwing some collage papers down, and then immediately you have something to respond to or react to. And that is a lot of times what I'll do, and maybe there's something in here. But sometimes it's like this, and I kind of like, I like it. I'm gonna leave it. It's very simple, but it's sometimes simple is better. Not always, but sometimes I will just put my collage papers, because like these two I really liked, and I just glued them in because I was like, oh, I like them just as they are, and they kind of complement each other. So on this table. So anyway, okay, I'm gonna turn the camera around and see if I can do it. There we go. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. And if any of you missed the very beginning, I just did some, I don't know, chit-chatting. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I have a tendency to kind of talk a lot. So and I think I did here today too. But anyway, if you want to catch some of that stuff at the front, hopefully the replay and all that will work. So anyway, yeah, thanks so much for joining me. And so, okay, Monica would like to see, okay, and this is actually my sister, so it's super fun that she joined me, and she wants to see the painting, the faces. So, okay, that will do that. I think that would be fun. That would get me motivated to do that. But again, it's a learned skill just like anything else. And obviously a lot of this is just getting started. And once you start, figure out your colors, figure out your shapes, figure out what it is. I mean, for me, I like I like abstract, and I like faces and figures, but you might like landscapes, you might like other types of art in terms of even just abstract or more representational art like flowers or still life. And I do like a little bit of still life, and I've done a series of bowls and a series of different things like that. So I wouldn't rule. I guess I do like a lot of different styles of art for myself. But anyway, so it's easy. Today was just about kind of warming up. And if you have any ideas moving forward, other than obviously possibly painting faces, then I'd love to hear them. And if we, possibly we'll do another one of these at some point. Question: did you design your own website? Yeah, I did design my own website, and it's on Squarespace. And it is, you drop in the pictures in all the different things. And for me, doing that, I think I've had it for like 4, 5, 6 years now. In my late 50s, there's a learning curve, and it took me a while. I'm no spring chicken, and so everything I do, even this, it takes me a little bit longer to kind of figure these things out and then be able to implement them. But I feel like it's always really good to learn, because if I don't learn how to do it, then I can't make those changes and do that myself. But it is. I know WordPress is another one that is definitely easy to use, and Squarespace is really easy, and they will hold your hand and help you to the degree that they can. But you do have to do the work yourself. I think you can hire somebody to design them for you too, but I did do it myself. So anyway, okay, thank you, Trey. Thank you. So, my website. Thank you. Okay, I did recently just do kind of an upgrade about, I don't know, 6 months or maybe close to a year ago. They have different styles that you can do, and so I kind of had upgraded it, and there's still some things, not upgraded but changed it, there's still some things that are from the old that have not been updated, but again, it's kind of a process. So I appreciate you actually going on my website and checking it out, so that means a lot. So anyway, okay, thanks everyone for being here, and hopefully I will do another one if it looks like this is something that people are interested in. And anyway, it's hard to say goodbye, but I'm going to sign off for now. So, okay, thanks.